Good morning and welcome to my presentation. My name is AnnetteNichols, and this is the Human Resource Management Graduate Project for Dr. Diane Sanchez. Today I'm going to be discussing the AT&T Warner Media and Discovery Inc. merger. The outline for today is I will be going over my hypothesis statement, the organizational development practitioner role and process, mergers and acquisitions, the history of AT&T, Warner Media, and Discovery Inc., an HR strategic plan, mergers and acquisition phases, the elements of successful mergers and acquisitions, best practices when we talk about mergers and acquisitions, what happens in post-merger, the cultural aspect of a merger and acquisition, recommendations, methodology and limitations, conclusion and implications for the 21st century workforce, and the references that were used for the research. My hypothesis is the purpose of this research project is to develop a human resource strategic plan for the merger and acquisition of AT&T Warner Media and Discovery Inc. This project will outline effective ways to ensure the successful merger and acquisition of the two companies. First, let's talk about what is organizational development. Organizational development is a field that encompasses contributions from business, psychology, HR management, communication, and even sociology. Organizational development is also a planned effort that develops within an organization managed from the top with planned interventions and is used to measure an organization's effectiveness. In the organizational development process, it is also the process of working to increase an organization's effectiveness. It also facilitates organizational change using interventions that are socially and behaviorally driven. Within this process, there are stages. The first stage is the entry stage. This is where this first stage, which begins with the company and the client. Next is the contracting stage. This is where consulting opportunities are discussed, creating the relationship. Next is the data gathering stage. This is where gathering methods of data are used to assess the client's issues. And then diagnosis and feedback is where any intervention strategies are assessed and evaluated. And then at the intervention stage, this is where agreements on interventions address the issues. And lastly, the evaluative and exit stage. This is where outcomes and exiting stages of interventions are discussed. In this process, there are also the role of the practitioner. Organizational development practitioners are change agents who are diverse individuals. They provide consulting to managers, executives, and teams who are going through a merger and/or acquisition. These practitioners are integral in the strategic planning of an organization. Skills that OD practitioners typically encompass are interpersonal skills, organizational behavioral skills. They must have the ability to analyze data effectively, training and development experience. They must have a vast business knowledge. They must have consulting skills. And more importantly, they must be skilled at interventions. And they must be able to communicate in public speaking experience. Let's talk about mergers and acquisitions. The first merger is a blend of two or more companies that become one organization. This is a mutual agreement between two companies to become one. There are tax benefits, financial benefits, and there's even an increase in competitive gains. Typically, mergers are done to increase visibility and gain more market share. They are becoming increasingly popular. Adoption of technologies from one company to another, and mergers usually acquire larger assets to gain financial borrowing capabilities. Acquisitions, however, they are usually a takeover of a weak firm by a stronger organization. They often occur as a result for the need to be competitive against larger corporations. One company may purchase another existing company in order to expand their organizational empire. This can be a hostile takeover if the existing company disapproves of the acquisition. But an acquisition brings diversification for the purchasing organization. To give you a little bit of history of the companies, AT&T Warner Media, of course, was founded in 1875 by Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Watson, and Gardner Green Hubbard. Recent developments in this company include, in 2015, the purchase of DirecTV for $48.5 billion. In 2016, AT&T announced a deal to purchase the Time Warner Company for $108.7 billion. After the Time Warner purchase, the company decided to reorganize itself into 4 main units. They had communications both at the consumer level and the business level. They forged a wireless division. They also had AT&T, their mobility services department, and of course the entertainment services that included the entire Warner Media library. In 2020, the COO, John Stankey, replaced the CEO, Randall Stevenson, which resulted in a massive debt of $200 billion for the company. In May of 2021, the company announced plans to spin off Warner Media and merge with Discovery Inc. for $43 billion. Discovery Inc. Is been around since 1985. It was launched. In 1990, its overseas operations expanded. And in 1991, the company was actually renamed Discovery Communications Inc. In 1996, there were spin-offs that included the Animal Planet, Discovery Kids, and then the Science Channel. In 1997, they purchased the Travel Channel. In 2006, former NBC executive David Zaslav was named president and CEO of this company. In 2016, the company decided to restructure in order to maximize their television business. And in 2022, it was announced a merger between Warner Media and Discovery Inc. Let's talk about the Human Resource Strategic Plan. This plan is a development of a new employee policy and procedure handbook that includes attendance, vacation policies, salary, etc. This plan also has a retention of key employees. Confidential interviews were conducted before the merger was completed. In this plan, key management personnel were interviewed and retained. Also, assessing the skills, capabilities, and potential of employees that will be retained should be analyzed. The knowledge, skills, and assessments, known as the KSAs, were also done to decide which employees stay with the company. Compensation policies of both companies should be analyzed. Disclosures regarding stock options, severance pay, retirement plans will also be included in the new compensation policy. A comprehensive employee benefit plan should be analyzed and implemented with the newly merged company. Other considerations and implementations in the Human Resource Strategic Plan A SWOT analysis must be conducted in order to assess the newly merged organization's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The HR team must understand and analyze both companies and develop a business objective. Employee skill sets for retained employees must also be analyzed to assess the collective workforce. A gap analysis must also be analyzed to ascertain if additional resources are needed to maximize employee productivity. An employee development plan must also be implemented to allow for growth and development for all employees. A plan for employee turnover issues and successions of employees that were retained in the newly merged company must be implemented. And of course, a new mission and vision statement must be created that encompasses the core values of the new company. When we talk about mergers and acquisitions, they go through some phases. Phase 1 is the identification of potential buyers that a company is interested in merging with. At this stage, non-disclosure agreements are shared between the two companies. In phase 2, the legal aspects of the merger and acquisition are secured and negotiated during this phase. In phase 3, preparations of the transaction, letters of intent are signed, government filings are completed prior to board meeting approvals. In phase 4, financials are discussed, and at this point, negotiations are taking place in this phase. This is also where official tax filings and government agencies are considered during this merger and acquisition step. Lastly, in stage 5, the two companies wishing to merge are combined into one newly formed organization. Corporate culture is then communicated to all employees. HR is heavily involved in this phase of implementation. Now let's discuss best practices in mergers and acquisitions. These are important. Successfully integrating two companies together requires a mutual agreement and devotion between the two enterprises before the agreements are agreed upon. In the pre-contract stage of a merger and acquisition, a cultural assessment or pulse of the company must be done with both companies so that goals and philosophies are outlined. Transitioning to the new company culture begins right away once the decision is made to merge. During the post-contract or combination phase, employees then begin discussions of the contributions the cultural attributes of both organizations are bringing. An integration team should be developed and trained to ensure that a smooth transition occurs during the merger. At the post-combination phase, cultural integration work begins at this stage. This can be challenging and very time-consuming, but necessary. Communication should be evident within all groups at this stage. And work to avoid any potential cultural conflicts. All facets of leadership must be prepared for issues to arise so that managers and employees can be prepared for what to do when conflicts happen. Post-merger success. This ensuring that all parties that are involved are represented fairly and equitably. Again, communication with all levels of management must be present. All parties must feel valued and satisfied. Being open and honest about the process ensures a successful partnership. Culture is the key to a successful merger and acquisition. Again, effective communication from leadership is of critical importance when establishing a strong corporate culture. Communicating that all positions within the company are safe and that any future decisions will not be made until an extensive analysis is done. Reputation. This is also an important successful element of a merger. Valuing the reputation of both companies is key. Inviting newly acquired leadership to speak to employees or previously merged groups is an invaluable way for the new company to learn more about the company and its reputation. Also realizing that sometimes certain opportunities may not work out. Knowing when a merger and/or acquisition isn't the best for the company is also a factor in whether it will be successful. A true fit with the organization must be analyzed so that the values and beliefs of both companies are aligned. Alignment is key. Investing in trusted inside sources will demonstrate a true commitment to the process. Aligning and developing common goals and principles will also achieve success. Developing a healthy relationship. Mergers and must ensure that communication is open and honest at all times during the process. And acquisitions are successful when it is evident that the terms of the deal were communicated and delivered. When we talk about mergers and acquisitions, we must talk about the corporate culture. Currently, Discovery Inc. CEO David Zaslav is helming the newly merged Warner Media with Discovery Inc. He brought in veteran lieutenant leaders from his Discovery Inc. to run the company. Unfortunately, after the merger, key figures at Warner Media Studios and HBO Max and the Networks Group all left the company. This company faces a huge task, integrating 40,000 employees into one newly merged global enterprise. Massive layoffs followed, creating a $3 billion synergy. Other ways the company looked to save money was to shift content with HBO Max and Discovery Plus into a mega streaming service, carefully without disrupting the user experience. New CEO David Zaslav appointed a new CEO for CNN, Chris Light, to run the news enterprise. The role of culture in mergers and acquisitions is important. A culture-first approach must be part of any successful merger and acquisition. You must understand the culture of both companies. Cultural due diligence should be evident in every merger to ensure a successful transition. Analyzing what looks right must be done with due diligence in order to align the two cultures successfully. A well thought out integration policy must be implemented rather than rushing the process, mitigating any potential risks. Employees and leadership must be engaged in the process. Commitments to long-term success, growth and development integrate culture and change. Communication, again, is fundamental in formulating a positive cultural environment. Dialogue between the organizations builds relationships and fosters a positive connection to the process. Never ignore the challenges with integrating multiple cultural environments. Tackling them head-on ensures that the growth and development are valued by celebrating rewards and successes. Ensuring, and most importantly, communicating the roles and responsibilities of all employees that are going to be affected in the merger process. Leadership is the catalyst in a successful merger integration of culture and environment. Training and developing leadership to manage the complexities of a merger and finding ways to support all facets of employees in this process. Building strong relationships and connections on both sides of the table will ultimately lead to an increased understanding between both companies and their corporate culture. Here are some recommendations. The planning starts right away, integrating teams together to align to the company's goals and visions. Kickoff meetings are held to introduce the newly integrated teams and company info, and also to share the framework for the new company. Again, it's stressed of importance to establish communication between the leadership and teams. Appointing a change management point person to mitigate any misinformation or any costly problems that may be anticipated. Identifying needs for the newly merged company's hiring process, which includes both short-term and long-term needs. Securing top talent in the company is of importance. And merging the newly integrated technology systems and reorganizing the organizational chart so that it effectively aligns to the company's vision and mission. Training and development also must be realigned to ensure that all employees who are remaining with the company understand their roles and responsibilities. Practitioners and the HR team are ready from day one to execute important information and communicate any company information. Integration teams should be designated at this point to ensure facilitation and conduct an assessment of the cultural fit between the two merged companies. Members of this team should include a human resource team member, an organizational development, and a training and development practitioner. A guide must be developed, or a roadmap that will ensure a successful process of cultural integration between the two organizations. Limitations of studies. It was a bit challenging to find articles regarding the Warner Media and Discovery Inc. merger. There was some limited information on the company culture of the newly merged organization and the lack of inner knowledge of both AT&T, Warner Media, and Discovery Inc. The methodology that was used, the use of peer-reviewed articles on mergers and acquisitions. Scholarly articles were also used for research and industry business articles, as well as knowledge of Warner Media and Discovery Inc. Conclusion and implications for the 21st century workforce. It is important to build a culture of collaboration and communication, to cultivate a working environment that fosters innovation and employee involvement, working to build those relationships with all facets of the organization, developing a working path for long-term job security. The newly integrated company must improve on ways to build employee morale. They must also foster a working environment where employees are willing to take risks. This concludes my presentation for today. These are the references used to aid my research. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.